Hi there. Hope all is well.
Ooh, happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday. Today I'm wearing my Corona thing. This is my Corona thing. That's what I call it. That helps me deal with when it's a little warm, a little hot here. And I'm hoping that tonight, once again, we are able to share with you things and observations we have learned over the years. And as I told you, it's a very different time because I never thought that 15, 20, 30, 35, 40 years, 35 years later, I would come back and look at them, see them from a whole another perspective. Mm-hmm. It's just like you hear people saying you read the Bible, and you go back and read it. And read these scriptures and God knows wrong. And they say something totally different. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that I will, and we will say something that's totally different that will help you to manage this season that is upon us all. There's no one who has been able to escape this. And I'm talking about even if you got money and private jets and everything, this isn't everybody's earth. And so we want to talk about this thing. And so I'm just going to open this up real quick. Father, I thank you right now that you are blessing us and you're blessing those who are listening, those who are tuning in. Father, let something be said that goes beyond the notes that I have on this presentation. But it'll speak to the heart and the soul of the Father, God, Son, someone who's concerned, someone who's worthy. Father, I pray that the peace of God that transcends all understanding will be able to fall in their souls and that they too will find a place of peace in the midst of turbulent times, turbulent chaotic moments, and uncertainty. Those in agreement, all in agreement said, Amen. Amen. Today, I want to go back and I want to break down the bare essentials, the steps that you need to take. We've been introducing the Greek cycle and Kubler-Ross Greek cycle and been introducing it, and I'm still introducing it because there's a lot of uncertainty that's happening. There's a lot of worry that's happening. There's a lot of stops and starts. There are a lot of things where people are having, mothers are worried. Fathers are worried about homeschooling, putting their kids in school. They're just things that are in our tool house that wasn't there before.
And what you're saying is within our house, but we don't have the tools for it. We are learning as we go.
And so because of that, I would have never thought it, but it's true that some of the things that I've had to learn to deal with, and so have you, that we would come back and share knowledge during this time. And so I'm glad that God is definitely showing us what to talk about and what to say. And my prayer is that you get something, take it away, that it'll help you with your day. You'll have sweet rest tonight. And you'll have peace of mind as you are dealing with a whole bunch of adjustments.
Yeah. And the thought I just had, I hope this is true for you all, for all of us, that we get to the place where we understand that we're in that daily bread zone. That's how fast things can change. That's how different things are. And so I hope and pray that even while you're listening right now, and when this is over and you have to kind of step back from this kind of company, this kind of interaction, that you become very thankful for your daily life. Because right now, this is what we do every day. We count on God. And we've been doing that because every day you wake up in the morning, you are counting on the spirit world to keep you alive. Even though we're so accustomed to it that we don't wake up and say thank you for the breath in my body. But it means a lot. It means a lot. Especially when you're anxious, because sometimes it does affect your breathing, the stress levels and all those things. So one of the things that started off beautifully as you can make it under these circumstances, is to say, this is what I'm saying. Even like you're getting good.
Good stuff. And so I'm going to go to slide number 1, word. Yeah. These are cards that I have to make for myself. I'll read it and share it with you, but this is when I had to deal with word back in 2016, 2015, 2016, and 2017. And I had to go back and revisit it in 2017. And it's amazing that I look at it now and it's still pertinent today. And so, worry number 1, I should never have my mind troubled by anxiety and worry if I live in the consciousness of the love God has for me. And so, let me explain it. I should never, bring it back to it. I should never have my mind troubled by anxiety. I have to notice that no matter what happens, you don't have to allow your mind to be troubled by anxiety. And then if we go back to the slide and work, if I live in the consciousness of the love God has for me, if I live in the consciousness of the love that God has for me, the Spirit tells us that me plainly, do not worry. What I have to do is, in this season, instead of being spooked by news reports, spooked by the uncertainty, spooked by violence, spooked by just people acting lascivious, I have had to make a decision that I am going to transcend this through the consciousness of love and God's Spirit that tells us plainly, do not worry. Bring it back here, please.
And if I can say this, if you really understand where worry lives, worry doesn't really live in this moment. Worry lives in this moment because of our thoughts about tomorrow.
Right.
Worry, that's why it'll say, tomorrow do not worry, tomorrow has trouble for itself. That's why it takes us into tomorrow, because worry is really about being uncertain in this space about what's going to happen next.
Yeah. And so with that, let's go back to the number 1 card. And it says, do not be anxious or worried about anything, but in everything, in every circumstance and situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. That is key. And I'll read it one more time. It says, but in everything, in every circumstance, situation, by prayer and petition, thanksgiving, continue to make your specific request known to God. Bring it back here. I was not taught this. I had to learn this the hard way. I had to learn this through trial and error and hardship and heartbreak and heartache and much disappointment, because this says, do not worry. Do not be anxious or worry about anything, but in everything, every circumstance, situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. The truth of the matter is I wasn't praying. I wasn't praying. I wasn't taking the time to slow my spirit down and pray and speak with God. I just had, Father, I thank you for this food that I'm about to receive. And may it bless all of it, nourish all the people's bodies and all that stuff. But the truth of the matter was, every time I was put proposition with prayer and meditation, I didn't have time for that because I was always on the go. So I thought just getting it in the car while I'm driving for a couple of seconds and listening to some gospel music that would put me in the mood. But it says by prayer, petition, and thanksgiving, continue to make your specific requests known to God, and the peace of God. I can read that today and understand. This is Philippians 4, 6 through 7, that I now can understand that this is my season where I need to be able to humble myself and say, God, I need your help. I need an answer. I need a respite. I need some peace. We need some peace right here. God, please work this situation out. And it says, thanksgiving, continue to make your specific requests known to God, and the peace and the peace of God, which, we're talking about surpassing all understanding. And this peace will come to you if you begin to include God into your train of thought, if that's making sense.
It is. And that's what this is. This is not just, this is how you connect. And prayer is about asking and then petitioning, asking and making my request, my specific request known. Then it's about communication, which means this is a part of relationship. This is how you communicate with God to pray. But one of the pieces that stuck out to me for this conversation for me is that then it says, make your specific request known to God. See, my specific request, and this is what I asked myself when Ron shared it with me, it opens the door for true confession. Now, don't make your wishful thinking. No. Your specific request. You know what that means? I have to be honest. I have to be present. So what is this saying? That when you're anxious, here are some of the things that's going to help you get control of that moment. Talking to God, asking, not telling, asking, and then being specific about what's going on. Why is that? Because if I'm anxious and I really stop and talk about what I'm truly feeling, then my secret worries will be revealed in my specific request. Mm-hmm. Because this is not, Jill, you're anxious and worried about something, but you're having a conversation outside of the fact that your mind is troubled. So you're in here asking for cards when your mind is troubled. You're in here asking for some people for outer things in their prayer, neglecting the fact that your state of mind is very important to your relationship with the Spirit. And so what are your specific requests? It's kind of what we did through the book group class when I said, listen, what happened? Write down what happened. Write down what they said, 3 parts, and then write down in a situation that troubled you what you wanted them to say. Because that's going to allow you to get to the truth. And because sometimes our hearts and our bodies or whoever we have become, we are so quick to guarding ourselves instead of allowing the peace of God, which is my true confession to Him, my specific request to Him to guard my heart and mind. I do it, and then I do it with all of those, anger, denial. So all of those things are attempts to guard my heart and my mind from further hurt. Right. And so, but make sure your requests are specific. The more that means, tell them, just go ahead and say what you really feel. I don't like this, what happened. I liked him. I thought he liked me. He seemed to give me the impression that we was an item. And next thing you know, I'm talking to him and he act like he don't know what I'm talking about. I feel the rejection from that. That's what I mean by a part of my specific request. God, heal me from this, because this is what's going on. This is what's troubling me right now. But most of all, that's going to cause us to be very present. Really present with what's going on in our life.
Because it's very good. I'll just continue with that. If you go back to slide number 3, and the man is facing the wall, and it's very clear field with blue skies and green everything. There's sometimes where we were rolling, but then we run into resistance. And resistance is that force of opposition that comes against you. And it's when you face these walls, and bring it back to it, you face these walls, you have to be able to now pray and say, God, what do you want me to do? Instead of deciding, I'm going to climb this wall, I'm going to go around this wall, I'm going to go up under this wall. You say, God, show me, Creator, show me what you want me to do, because I am at a loss at this point. This is how you're following that humility, that role of humility. And so the very next slide is the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. And we got to this, Jill, because of you writing the grief book and you saying, hey, I want to, what I think I want to do, God meet, or should I do how to study, or should I do good grief? And I said good grief, and that's before coronavirus and everything. But I sort of figured, I said, I think you're on it right. And sure enough, this chart right here, once I did your lesson on Be Free 365, you asked me so many pertinent questions that it piqued my interest. But I realized that I had not taken this kind of time to intensely look at my grief, my loss, and everything I was experiencing.
And that taking that kind of time, loving yourself means that you're going to have to be patient, and you're going to have to give yourself the kind of time enough to ask the real questions. And I think that something you said on the very beginning of that slide, when you talked about worry, and you just talked about I should never have my mind troubled by anxiety and worry. This is going to put it back up. And you said, if I live in the consciousness of the love God has for me, right there. And so facing some of these walls, facing those moments where you may not get the response back that you were looking for, what's going to hold you is when you face this life with the consciousness of the love that God has for you. And so that would mean this: when it comes to rejection, you're never alone. You are never alone. And so even when you're feeling lonely, and that's a real feeling, you can also speak to that wall that says you're not only lonely, but you are alone. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. And that kind of helps some of the intensity that tries to ride into your life on the low level anxiety. And before you know it, you're almost at panic, or you're at some intense situation, don't know how you got there. And then everything looks wrong. First it was just one thing, now everything looks wrong, because then you start seeing so many things through that lens.
And the dark nights of the soul, once again, are those moments where things seem completely out of control, and you just don't know what to do next. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's the next move. You feel like you're in a whirlwind. Mm-hmm. But there's a way to be in a whirlwind, a tornado, and your hair not get messed up because you've chosen to have the peace of God. Last night, a couple of times, my sleep was trying to be interrupted by some intrusive thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I had to take myself to the place of peace. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I had to turn on one of my videos like I have here and say, Deron, take yourself to this water. Take yourself to this place. I have a couple of places, mental places in my mind that I take myself to. One of the places when I am feeling so anxious or just feeling out of control, I take myself to the safari we went through years ago. And that was one of the most pensive, godly moments I've ever had in Africa, looking over this ravine. It's pitch black, can't see nothing. We up at least 400 feet, it feel like. and they are serving us cocoa and all this sort of stuff out there. And I looked over at those mountains and in that valley and everything, and I just thanked God at that moment. God, I thank you, because I didn't do nothing for my life to end up for me to be able to see this. Meaning, this was not in my.
You didn't set out for this.
I didn't set out for this, but now I'm having a piece of understanding. And for some reason, when you're in Africa and in other countries, we're so used to all these buildings all over the place that you could just see the sky for miles, and you could see, and I could see the glory of God in those mountains. And so when I experienced these walls, I had to learn, even there in South Africa, we were having a time, that first time I went, and you were, I think I took the crew, and you were having to run.
Yeah.
What was going on here?
Go.
You didn't go. That's right. And you were having to run here. And so there were a lot of things that were happening. And so now let me go back to what I said on that thing. It says, by everything with prayer and petition. Which slide was that?
That was number one. I mean, yeah, number one has that. A number.
And so it says, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, continue to make. And so by faith, once you get into these dark moments where you're not sure where you are, you have to have the faith that God's going to bring me out of this as well.
Absolutely. And think about this, Ron, and you all, when it's saying continue to make your specific request, you know what I mean? And I think Luke 19 is the same way. We talked about the widow that was praying. He told her to be persistent in prayer. Sometimes, some of us come from a teaching where you think faith means you're going to say it one time and you don't have to say it. But that's not how the body works. As you said, when you had intrusive thoughts, sometimes thoughts, they just, you're going on about your business. You're not necessarily rehearsing or focusing on something. Sometimes you just have an intrusive thought, and it can be right along the same line as something you prayed about. So what this is telling you is, listen, continue. Why am I saying that to you? Because so that you won't be these people. Yesterday I was feeling good. I prayed to the Lord, I feel good. 2 days later, I'm back here again. Up and down, up and down, and up and down. We don't have to talk like that when we understand this. Just continue to pray. If the feeling comes back, talk about it again. Take that quiet moment, center yourself, and then cast that care on God every time it comes. What does that mean? Cast it, speak it out, get it out. Don't find yourself wrestling with that alone. Do the work. Use your tool. Use these things right here, right in the moment, because that is when you're going to recognize that this absolutely does work in your personal life, when you're in the thick of it.
I had a friend who was going through some legal issues, none due to his own fault, but he was now being pushed into a situation, and so was I at one point. And he had to take his son to some college school or something like that. And he was with other fathers and everything. And he had to decide that he was not going to allow whatever was going on in his life affect that moment right there, that he was going to make it through. And for me, I've had to, when I started feeling overwhelmed or helpless or hostility or wanting to fight, I would say, God, please, when I get in this car with Jill today, help me to be in tune with my words. Help me to be supportive. Help me not to start it. Help me, Lord, to be able to be focused on your spirit and not focused just on my goal. Or if I felt anger and I was frustrated, I would pray, God, my petition of God, please help me get past these triggers. Whatever it is that's causing me to keep hitting these dark moments, I'm releasing this to you, surrendering it to you. And I'm letting you know that I am aware of my own issues. And I need you to help me to deal with that. When it got to acceptance, I said, God, help. I do not like internally the truth that I have to accept, but I'm going to accept this truth. And the reason I'm going to accept this truth because I understand it's only through your love and your consciousness that I can actually see clearly. And if I stay in this state of rebellion, ignorance, irritation, snap, get back, revenge, you name it, searching people out, following them, being up in their business, if I do that, then what I'm doing is I am setting the path for my life. And I realize a man, a woman reaps what they sow.
Absolutely. You know, and that acceptance part for me, I'm working to have days to rest and jail costs and a few other people. Those are the two main people who are working with me on something that I have to deal with that is huge to me. And these are the words that I use. This was not always the word that I use. I used to didn't want to know. I used to didn't want to know because I just didn't want to feel like I couldn't do it and I didn't have it to do. Now this is how I approached it. Just tell me, just give me the numbers. I need to know what I need to believe. See, that one little change of mind said, I need to know what I need to believe, what I have to believe in. And where before, I didn't want to face the facts. I didn't want to know the truth. I didn't. So you know what that does now? It now makes me take my specific requests. No guesswork there. I can take my specific request to God. You know what happens when I take my specific request? That means I'm not carrying it around anymore. That means it's not taking up space in my life for future ideas from God that would contribute to whatever I'm here to do to make this world a better place. But for so long, there were so many things that I kept inside. I kept inside. And so now that I don't do that, and I started not doing that with small things, and then I got to big things that I knew were bigger than what I had to fix it. And I say, just give me the numbers. That used to be a moment of anxiety. Right. It's not a moment. And I wish I could tell you, but I can't tell you. You just have to do it and you'll know.
Find, my brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right. I'm on slide 5. Whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Now, let me tell you, when I first, you can bring that back here, when I first learned this principle, it was hard for me to comprehend. How am I going to think about something noble with all this energy? How am I going to think about something right? Is this some kind of trick? Whatever is pure, how am I going to think about that? Well, the truth of the matter is, we are so used to thinking about the negative, so used to thinking about opposition, so used to thinking about the pressure, so used to thinking about those who are attacking us, that we have gained a habit of being suspicious and not praying with a heart of petition and saying, God, help me to think on what's praiseworthy, which means that you now have to, I'm not going to do it here, but you'll have to find examples of who and what you're thankful for. And this is how your prayer life increases, because you begin to realize, I can begin to say, God, I thank you. Today on my slide, it's in here, but Will kept mentioning something about mom. And on my slide, I had, this is an old one, it's not in this presentation, but in this, my slide, I understood when you mop, you are getting all this dirt up. You gotta, it ain't something that happens easy. And that I have to decide, one, and I learned in trauma, you can take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. You can take 2 steps forward and seem like 3 steps back. But you always have to pay attention that I took a step forward. I found a way to move forward. And I had to make a decision that I was not going to be depressed. And for me, because I believe in freedom, I believe in this America, I believe in all these different things, I had to make a decision. I'm not going to think about what this government official is saying right now. I'm not going to, and listen, I'm not talking about being in ignorance or being in denial. I just decided, no, I'm going to think about what's praiseworthy in my family, what's praiseworthy in my life. Well, I'm thinking about, I looked at my wife and I said, I thank God that she is constantly thinking 2 and 3 steps ahead. I'm going to think about those things. And so whatever I've learned to receive, whatever you saw for me, seen to me, put into practice. And here's what, this is my adage. And bring that up, put your entertainment on this. Put your entertainment, not entertainment, your entertainment on this. And the God of peace will be with you. Listen, I was an action man. I could watch some very tough stuff. And I could get good principles out of it. And I'm not telling that it won't happen. But in this season, I had to make a decision, Jill. I can't put my mind on some of these things because all they do is feed something further in me that's not settled right now. And so I learned to remember, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Remember, worry doesn't take God into account. Worry's voice sends the message that we are forgotten. And I have to realize that if I'm caught up in fretting and worrying and ruminating and doing this, I'm out of the presence of God.
Well, because this is what John chapter 1 is going to say. For all those who, when it comes to receiving the word, when the word became flesh, it said that we had to receive it and welcome it. And we have to do both. That means I have to do more than just let someone give me something. My attitude towards receiving it has to be welcoming. I have to believe that God is with me. If I don't believe that God is with me, then guess what? I'm going to be hostile. Probably not intended to be hostile to the truth, but I'm just full of hostility or full of suspicion. Right. And so when the spirit of truth is in my space, and this deliverance of mine is going to come in this ugly package, I'm in resistance because I don't believe that even though the package is ugly, what is going to bring it to my space, because God is with me. Will said it this way. He said, no matter what you're going through, find God in that. See, that we're not talking about religion here. He said, find God in that. I asked myself Deron when you told me about this message, and he says, whatever is noble, he says, think on this. And he said, take the time to think this way. We all have a way of thinking. So he said, listen, think this way. And then he said, why is that? Because when you think this way, you welcome the peace of God. You're going to feel the peace of God. You're going to invite the peace of God into your space. Why is that? Because whatever else you're going through, as long as you have breath in your body, listen, he's working it out. Not for you, but with you. Not for you. And sometimes we're waiting for a for me situation that is a with you situation. But I asked myself, when it says it didn't put into practice, I said, my question to me was, what do I need to put into practice? Because it's telling me to do two things. Think this way and then practice what you do. What, now that I know that list of things to think about, to put my mind on, think this way, okay, what do you need to put in practice? You know, what are you coming in contact with? People used to say it this way, you should read the Bible, but you got to let the Bible read you too. You got to let that truth read you too. What am I not putting in practice? Am I allowing the exchange? So that's a question to ask yourself. So that you won't be in tomorrow with a whole bunch of yesterday's buildup because you didn't put into practice what you could have done today. That's why I said, listen, don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today. Because, and I said this week to a couple people, listen, it is true that not everyone believes that life is short. That's not true for everybody. That life is short. Some people live to be 100 and something. That's not a short life, right? That may not be true for everybody, but here's what's true for everyone. Tomorrow isn't promised. My girlfriend was telling me today, because I shared this with her, and her example was she had a woman who was supposed to do her taxes. She just maybe talked to the woman Wednesday last week. So now she's waiting to maybe sending messages or something to the person who's supposed to do her taxes. And the person's going to call her and say, my mother had a stroke. Mm. She's telling me that story for this reason. She said, oh, tomorrow is a promise. Because I was just talking to this lady. She was fine. She was telling me all that she was getting ready to do, some great ideas that she had, some going to school, some learning this and that. This was a personal conversation on a Wednesday. By Sunday, she didn't make a phone call to my girlfriend. Her daughter did. By Sunday, someone else is having to be her voice. Someone else is having to be the person who responds for her. Tomorrow, you might live to be 100, but tomorrow is not promised. Do not put off for tomorrow what you can do right now. Put into practice what you have
learned. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 7:21 through 22. It says, I had to learn to practice this for years. Also, do not take, I'm at Ecclesiastes 7:21. Also, do not take seriously everything that it said, so that you will not hear your servant cursing. For you also know that you too have cursed others many times. And so I've had to learn not to pay attention to a lot of things that have been said or things that are being said, because sometimes people are speaking out of their woundedness, hurt, their ignorance, their upbringing, their get back, or whatever it is. And the last thing, and like I told you a couple of weeks ago, when I had this person call me, and they had been a great confidant in my battle with my health battle. Mm-hmm. And then something happened. Unbeknownst to me, something didn't go down the way they thought it should go down. And they had a major conversation in the car. And before you know, by the time I'm calling just to encourage them, I'm getting all kinds of shade and everything. And I couldn't believe it. And then that's when wisdom said, Deron, you know who you are. You know what you've done. You know what your heart was. And this person is hurt. And they're using this situation as a situation to come at you. And then they just didn't do it to me. They also did it to my man in Atlanta. And you were on the phone at that time, and they just basically tore him down. And he was one of the most generous, giving people that there were. But I could tell this energy is going to try to stop you from your purpose and get in front of you. And you have to say, no, I'm not taking that person.
Listen, this is how I understand life. You are the light of the world. When people come into your space, if you just be you, that's why it's good to get to your authentic self. If you would just be you, you would be a light just being you. And that light is supposed to penetrate the darkness. It will be a sweet aroma to someone who is walking, seeking. But for someone who is late or hurt or got some unresolved issues or not good at communicating or didn't know to cast their cares on God, they get into that space. And you know that light exposes something. So we're the light of the world. Don't turn your light off because people come to you to be healed. See, once I used to take it personally, but this Gail said it one time, and I never forgot it, because someone called me about something. It was just a stranger's call, Gail Costin. It was a stranger's call. And I said, Gail, it was the strangest call. I didn't understand. She said, oh, Jill, that's because they was talking to the priest. You thought your friend called you. No, they was talking to the priest, meaning this. They just wanted to bare their soul. They just wanted to put something that was troubling them out and probably didn't really realize, but kind of came in the door. I answered the phone like a friend, but this was another friend that was going through. And I've learned that you, as a light, people come to you to be healed. People came to the Christ, and we are the body of Christ to be healed. And some people come to heal, they got some kind of spirit. And if you take that person, I'm not saying that there aren't some things that you are just going to let people do. But this is why the suspicion of people and being healed, that's why this is so important. It's so important so that you can trust yourself to God, because you're going to meet some people who are half-baked.
Let me just jump in there real quick. This season is bringing out the best of the crooked mentality, because people are now having to survive. Mm-hmm. And you have to be careful that you don't tangle with any energy. I started this a year and a half to 2 years back to say, I'm not tangling with any energy. Why? Because I understand people have nothing to lose. And this one right here says, when I said, put your entertainment on this, I was saying, look at some documentaries, not just documentaries on rebellion and antebellum and this kind of stuff, but documentaries and movies that speak to your situation, not movies that are trying to expose all conspiracy theories, and I'm not telling you against that, but you have to know, let me put my mind on what really, really, really works. Let me just go to the next slide. Shame and blame do not purify. Shame and blame, they do not purify. And when you are frustrated, irritated, depressed, worried, anxious, going through, overwhelmed, stretched beyond being stretched, uncertain, feeling rejected, feeling not cared for, shame and blame do not purify. And so I've had to say, God, give me the ability to speak in such a way where I'm not shaming anybody and I'm not blaming. I'm not blaming my daughter, blaming her friends or anybody, but saying, hey, I hope that you're able to capture this and to work this out.
Listen, what I thought about that, Deron, is that with shame and blame doesn't speak of your specific request. What does that mean? As you use your breath to speak to God, as you use your breath as a tool for prayer, a tool to change things, a tool to change mind, a tool to renew things, this ability that you have to speak. No other animal has this ability like we do. No, this is the image. We have language, not just communication.
Right.
And so when I'm shamed, and that's what I'm talking about, and I'm talking about blame, I'm not talking about solutions. And so in that space where I'm anxious, right? You're hurt, you're still in that kind of space, and now you're trying, you want out of this hurt, but you're talking about now you got shame and blame language.
And you're doing it on the slick tip.
But most of all here, Deron, is that what you're not doing is you're not making your own specific requests. I'm talking about you. I'm not talking to God about my specific request. You know what the Father already knows? That you are the star of your movie. Everyone else are extras, but they don't get the fit. They're not the star of your movie. So you're talking about the extras. So all of that's going to be a part of this life. But when you don't make your request known, speak it out. Because here's the other beautiful thing about making my request known in a room by myself. First of all, I hear what I was afraid to. I say what I was afraid to say. That means I hear what I was afraid to hear. Then I hear it. I'm no longer afraid to hear because I see they didn't kill me. I see that if I cried, I still got up and went on with my day. You know what that means? Now I can make my request known to you without anxiety. Now I can say, well, this is what I was trying to say. This is what I was like. But when I did that before making my specific request known, with just me, myself, and I, me and the Lord, this whole thing, before then I will come to you with the anxiety. And now I'm not speaking facts. I'm not speaking my specific request. My emotion is governing the conversation. Nobody can really extract the facts out of your emotions like you can. No man knows a man's thoughts, but like his spirit does. And so what it will do when you talk it out outside of the crisis, and you surrender yourself to wanting and welcoming the truth, even though you don't feel good about it, then you can really go back and have a conversation where your communication will be clear, where you can at least speak of the real outcomes that you're looking, that you want. You can share your why. Other than that, it gets all muddied up, and you have someone else who is listening to you, but they can't act on your behalf.
I had to make a decision a couple of years back, and it was a heart-wrenching decision. But I had to realize every time I speak with this person on the phone, who I thought was very supportive, I had depression. I felt down. And I said, what is this? And then God, wisdom said, you know what this is. This person is constantly comparing themselves to you. They're constantly doing all these different things. And when you deal with them, you find yourself dealing with yourself. And I had to finally speak and say, hey, listen, I don't want to hear about anything that has been said about me from your mouth if the person that you're talking to can't say it to me.
So they were telling you what they heard someone else say about you.
About me. And it was about the good that I had done, but it still was put into a different type of light. And I had to say, I'm going for peace and shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum shalom. And so if we go to the next slide that was on there, number 7, I had to decide I'm going to be a man of peace. I'm going to study every aspect of shalom to figure out how do I bring peace. And part of being peace was to be silent, to decide I don't have to speak on this. I don't have to do this. And then when it was time to speak up, Jill, I spoke up and said, hey, listen, do me a favor. This is exactly what I've asked you not to do. And I'm asking you to be on the up and up with me. And if not, I said, we are at a crossroads in our relationship. Because if we can't speak truth and be honest, and if you can't speak with thus saith the Lord, but you are talking from your ego or whatever the case may be, I said, this is inappropriate.
And let me tell you something. I, in my past, have been a person who wanted to tell the truth. Sometimes I wouldn't share what someone said about somebody, but there was enough times in my life, and I'm not saying whether it was before leading a church or leading a congregation, but in times in my life where it never felt that when you do that, anytime I've done that, the air left the room, something changed.
Right.
That's how I knew. Even when the person did not say to me, don't say it. It always shifted something. And so I learned, Jill, you don't have to say that unless you think that this situation is going to really damage this person. You know, somebody's about to have an affair and it's real evidence. You're not going to say anything, and you're going to pray before you do any of that. But what am I saying to you, Deron? Of course you feel. If any of us who have done that, if you will be present, you'll find out that right after you do that, if the conversation was lovely, it shifted. It shifted because nobody really wants to hear that. And you have to be led by the Spirit.
And I had to make the decision. I ain't getting them back. I ain't publicly humiliating them. This is just my experience and what I've had. And so, assalamu alaikum, shalom. Peace comes when we destroy the authority that has established the chaos. And so it's spelled Sheen, Lam, and Pei, and Mem. And what it's doing is saying that with the actual Hebrew understanding is that peace comes when we destroy the authority that is establishing the chaos within our mind, the chaos within our family, the chaos within our thought process, the chaos in our body. That's when peace comes. But you have to fight the fight of destroying whatever thought was taken. What thoughts have authority over you? What thought processes cause you to think in a way that you know this ain't who I'm supposed to be thinking?
Right. And in that, Ron, I saw that. I want you to hear it this way. When I listened to it today, I could see how I used to try to think I could destroy the chaos. That means I try to change you, or I try to change somebody because they was the chaos. That was the chaotic thing. That's to change the energy in the room. Right. Where now when I read this, I get it. He told me, take the power away from it. Destroy, the authority is the power. The authority isn't the chaos itself. The authority is the power the chaos has over you. So that's why people can come to me, they can say things. Certain things do unravel me, and most of the time, it ain't somebody saying something about me. Because I know me, but I definitely don't like to see people call other people's names or just do those kind of things. It disturbs me terribly because, again, every human being deserves dignity. And but it's the power. So this week, make sure, take the time. When you feel that irritation, when you feel it, your feelings never lie to you. They may be lying, they may not be true about the situation. It could be a perceived moment, versus what's really going on. But the feelings that you're feeling, is exactly pure truth. And when you feel that feeling of agitation, and it comes from somebody else, don't talk about them. Don't focus on them. Ask yourself first and foremost, because this is the only place where you have the power to make a difference for yourself. And that is this. What kind of power did I give this that allowed it to change my mood to this degree? Can things change your mood? Of course. But to a certain degree where you are paralyzed and immobilized, that's the point. It is that level of intensity. So take the power. I think I wrote here. Ron, you said someone said you talked about the noise that's in my thoughts. Take the power away from the noise. The thoughts are going to be what they are, but it's that other voice, that accuser that's in the room, that unclean thing that's in the room. And it's not that it's unclean that you got to clean somebody up. You can't do that. That's not our position. It is to keep our light on so that when the spirit of truth has been received by the other person and penetrated their heart, then they would change according because they are ready for that change. Listen. Convince a man against his will, he or she will be of the same opinion still. Listen, there are people that do things in front of you, and then when they get on their own, they're going to be who they really want to be. It's just true. And I'm never interested in anybody that's acting for me. I'll say this last thing that I think is important. Say, I remember years ago, when I went to this before we had just started church, we was in Walker Mill, and I went to a women's breakfast with the wife of a friend of ours, and she said, I took a couple of ladies with me, and of course, they Jill, we doing different things. They call me Jill, and we're just talking like we're friends, like we care about each other. And she said, why do you let them call you Jill? Why do you allow them to call you Jill? So I was already a little agitated by that because I
taken aback.
So she said, why they call you Jill and not First Lady or Pastor or that? And I said the difference. I told her, the difference between you and I is that you want them to respect your title. I'm not interested in it. I command respect from them, not the title. The title can come and go. The title of wife can come and go. As I told the Google, when your husband's that you're gonna be First Lady no more, then what? Then what? Do they get to disrespect you? And so I've learned, take the power away. I didn't have that. I don't draw people in because of some superficial thing. Because that'll never last. If it's not in your heart to do, then it's hypocrisy and it doesn't benefit either one of us. That's why love must be sincere. And that's what I'm working on. Friends and people who connect with me and people I want to connect with are those people who understand this. Love must be sincere. It cannot be that other stuff that you do to make the situation look right. It must be sincere.
That's all I got to share.
All right.
This evening. I hope that you got the peace of God. I love you and we beat you to it. Church, listen to me. There is a humility and a soberness that has come over me and several people who are in tune with what's happening. And read the 5 wise versions and the 5 foolish versions. And ask yourself, am I getting prepared? Am I getting prepared internally on what's happening? Mm-hmm. Because we are going to see neighbor against neighbor, kingdom against kingdom, city against city, brother against brother, Egyptian against Egyptian. And we're going to have to be able to keep our wits about ourselves.
Absolutely. Listen, everything. Listen, don't let any of this cause you to suffer. Anger, frustration, suspicion, because whatever you send out, that's what's going to come back. And that's not what you want. I just want you to know that we've been doing something for over 20 years. And that is when we grew so big at one time, and Ron said this, and it still stays in our heart. when we grew bigger, larger, we wanted to stay smaller because we wanted to make sure everybody, no matter what their temperament was, if they was not a person who was good at making friends, we wanted to make sure we had an open door for them to come and be part of a community, because when we confess our sins to one another and we can pray for one another and we can be healed, and all of that is important. Trust is so important, okay? So listen, if you want to do that, you can go to the soulfactory.com. I believe if you go to what we do, but if you search through there's you can find a cell group and you can join the cell group and you can join the small group of people. Why do you want to do that? Because this, what you hear right now, this is our diet for 20-something years. This is the diet that has produced some great single women who are not lost in rejection. I mean, this, what we're talking about, this is the diet. Changing lives from the inside out by leading people into a growing relationship with Christ. This is the diet. You don't know us. You're looking at this and just saying, I don't just want this on Wednesday. I want to be a part of something, and I don't want COVID to have me feel like I'm so separated I can't be a part of something. Go to the soulfactory.com. Get with a small group. All you have to do is fill out the submission form they asked you for, and somebody will get back to you and they will link you with some people. Why is that? So that you can get through this not lonely and not alone physically. So I wanted to say that because many of us have been blessed by this small group opportunity. Also, go on there and see that we have a prayer line, and these people pray 3 times a day, every day, Monday through Friday. And there has been they have sent me notices of the breakthroughs, where people call back and say, y'all, I asked y'all to pray, and my daughter or son or family member or co-worker, this is what they was going through, and it's like some kind of miracle. It's like, thank you for showing that you are. It's like some kind of miracle that this happened to them, because they've been waiting for this and they've been going through that. So I'm telling you, let us use our spiritual weapons. We've used our carnal weapons. Now let us use our spiritual weapons of love, belief, faith, prayer, studying the word, not the words, but the message of the word, and then growing in grace and truth. So listen, don't be alone. You don't have to. They call me Jill. They call him Deron. Listen, we're not of that persuasion where you got to feel like somebody's a king and queen in your space, and you can't speak. That's not what this is. So with all that said, God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful night. We love you, as Deron said earlier, and we beat you too. God bless.